You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, the Podcast Mogul Phil Better, and I am very, very excited. He is a digital marketer original from Singapore. He left school at 16 to forge his own path, and since has been a web developer, a semi-professional poker player, and a professional chef. Like, this man can do it all. He did have a stint for about 2 years where he decided to visit 10 countries, all while working remotely. And he is a big believer in doing what he loves, not just following the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for my good friend, Derrick. Derrick, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Derrick, so I just read out this amazing mini intro that you left me up, but can you give us an introduction to yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into deciding to be a freelancer.
Yeah, so I grew up in Singapore, and Singapore just culturally is very, it's a bit more on the conservative side. You know, people follow the rules, do what they're told. Right, and just kind of follow the status quo a lot, and that's never really been me. And so when I was 15, 16, I started kind of basically questioning just why I was in school, right? Being and kind of coming to the realization that I was really only doing school because that's what everyone does, and it's not actually that I was really gaining anything from it. And so I figured, that it would be more worth it to leave and just explore on my own, right? So yeah, so that's kind of what I did. I left school, I started blogging. I started reading Seth Godin's blog, and that's kind of how I got started.
Okay.
One day I dropped, Seth Godin has a really great way of putting thoughts into words very concisely, and so his blog really spoke to me. And one day, I guess being the courage of being a young kid, I dropped him an email. I just sent him an email with a random thought. There wasn't even a question. It was just a thought I had. And he replied to that email, and he was like, "That's a great thought." And that eventually, the contents of the email became my first blog post. And that's kind of how I got started. And then kind of since then, right, I've always been just kind of doing my own thing, and just the idea of being open to opportunities of whatever comes up, right? So back in the earlier days, I would attend a lot of events, do a lot of networking stuff, right? Meet people, just kind of see what comes up, and just try and be prepared for whatever comes along.
I love it. So Seth Godin's book kind of started your journey. His blog started your journey into this freelancing world of knowing that, hey, I'm not tied to a single location. I don't have to follow the status quo as it is. So, your why was because you didn't, it was just school wasn't for you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just like, I wanted to explore, I wanted to do something different. Growing up, the dream was always like my idol growing up was like Steve Jobs, right? The dream was always to create something
Mm-hmm.
and like, leave an impact. Um, yeah, and I dropped off high school. I went to college in the States for like for 2 or 3 semesters, and I dropped out of that. And the nomad thing came about because like I didn't want to live in Singapore. I didn't really have any specific place to go, and work visas and work permits are difficult to get. So I just kind of, I would just fly to a place. I'd have, a 3 month or 6 month travel visa. And then when that ended, I would just go somewhere else. And that's kind of how I ended up doing the like digital nomad thing.
Were you blogging the whole time while you were traveling? That like, was that how you got into this digital lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always been a computer geek, right? I learned how to code when I was like 11 from books, like I remember being 12 years old and reading like teach yourself C++ in a weekend kind of book.
Jesus, you're
So
more dedicated than I was.
yeah, I've always been a big computer geek. So, when I left school, going into kind of the digital internet realm was always like, it was just a natural progression. Yeah. And then when I was traveling, by that point, I kind of like slowed down on my own blogging. But I was, working freelance, building websites for like small businesses and stuff like that. Started as a web developer as I was traveling.
So doing all this, like doing all that has given you this freedom to travel, to live where you want, experience all these things. You must have come up with like dozens of memories, dozens, probably hundreds, if not thousands. Is there one that kind of like just stands out? Maybe it was a result you got for either building them this great website or something else that you've done for them through your freelancing, or a moment where you're just sitting in this amazing vista or whatever like hits you at home and you're just like, wow, I can't believe I'm here.
I mean, there are definitely a lot of the like, I can't believe I'm here kind of moments, especially when I was traveling. Like I went through like, I remember I spent like 2 months in the Bahamas, and that was an insane. And it's more tied to the poker than to the kind of
It's part
digital
of your journey as
marketing
an
thing.
entrepreneur, because
Yeah,
being a poker player is still building a business because you have to get the funds. So you have to learn a skill and
yeah.
go. But yeah, so you were in the Bahamas for poker?
Yeah, so I went to play the PCA. It was a poker tournament there, and it was like it was pretty insane because this was like one of the hugest tournaments. I played a few smaller kind of tournaments around Europe and stuff, and so you meet some players. And so at this tournament in the Bahamas, at the end, like there's a closing party, and so it's just this club. They book it out for like all the poker players, and I was there. And back then, when I used to play poker, I would wear when I played big tournaments, I'd always wear like a suit and tie, um, just cause
The stand
like
out.
impression, yeah, and like
Yeah.
the vibe that you give off. Um, yeah, and so we were at the club. I was in like my whole getup. I ran into one of the other players I'd met from like a previous event in Europe. He brought me over to like the VIP like table section, and like a while later, Jonathan Duhamel, who was the like World Series winner in like 2011, like it's at the VIP section. So he comes by and he's like nice suit, and then we just start talking and like drinking together, and like he brings me over to their table where they have like bottles. It was a really insane night.
Oh, that's a heck of a memory to have.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, right? And just like being like I'm partying with these people I've seen on TV, right? It's
And
pretty
you're there.
crazy.
Wow, that's insane. And now let's switch it. That's a great memory to have, because you wouldn't have gotten that if you didn't just jump into the digital entrepreneurship,
Yeah,
because
for
you
sure.
needed to have some seed money to get to that
Yeah.
level. So let's go into the business side. Is there a memory from helping a client reach a goal that they had with you that just cements like, yeah, this is why I chose the freedom? Like, yes, being able to be a semi-professional poker player on weekends, be funded by my business is great, but like getting those wins for those, do you have a memory of that?
I mean, the it's a lot of kind of like small wins, right? When you do digital marketing, it's a lot of kind of small steps and
Yeah.
iterations. One of the things I remember the most, and it kind of comes down more to like personal satisfaction, right? More than for me, it's more like a personal thing of
Mhm.
we did this and it was really cool. Like one of the things I remember the most was I was working with a startup that was based in London, and just like doing paid ads for them. And I had done like a Coursera course on machine learning, and so we started like kind of doing different forms of testing instead of like a straight A/B test. We would run like 10 different variations and use like linear regression models and stuff to kind of see what factors affected the like click-through rates and stuff like that, and just kind of seeing all of that come together and like seeing the results of like like being able to take something I've learned from a specific course and apply it. I think those are the things that like stick out to me the most.
That is great. That takes your learning to the next level, because when you go to your next client, you can just provide this already informed decision on how to run a test or something like that.
Yeah.
Or even for your own business, you already have this data to 10x your business because you're doing it you're learning on the someone else's dime. Wow.
Yeah, definitely. We've done like with that client, we did a lot of like that sort of small tests, right? We did one where we personalized the homepage like headlines based on which ad they clicked. So if the ad says like design your own makeup palette versus create your own makeup palette, right? The homepage headline would be different. And we saw like more than the conversion rates on those personalized page were more than double. So that in itself was like it's a really small thing to implement, but it's also very easy to implement for any client to go to after
Yeah.
that.
Wow. Just that, by just doing that little personalization, like
Yeah.
makeup or versus create. Wow.
Like
That's
making sure
insane.
your like landing pages match the ads and everything makes such a huge difference.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. That's a huge thing. Like, I know this is a personal win for you and you're sharing this win, but it's also a huge tip for any of my listeners, like when they start doing their ads, because obviously organic works only for so much. You can only build up so much with organic. You start paid ads is where you start seeing the millionaire status implemented. But just knowing like this little tip from a win that you got for a client, that's a little personal satisfaction, will start them off huge when they start even doing those paid ads.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that like every new client I go to, that's one of the things I've started bringing into pretty much every client now.
Yeah, it's because it's a quick win to show that you know what you're talking about, and then
Yeah.
the next time you get to learn something with those clients, you bring it into the next client, and every client gets better and better. Oh, wow, that's insane. Derrick, do you have another tip if you care to share? Like, let's look at the people wanting to become into your world of freelancing, like being a freelancer or something like that. They don't want to build a business. They just want to have that like lifestyle of being able to jump around and travel for 2 years, what kind of tip do you have for them to start this kind of like digital nomadic
I mean,
lifestyle?
I think on a like personal level, right, for most people, the biggest thing that holds them back is like the fear element, right? You get worried about money, you get worried about not knowing the right people, right? And yeah, and that's the thing that like stops most people. It's not, actually having the skills, it's not, right? The skills and knowledge, a lot of people have that from their day jobs or whatever it
Mhm.
may be. It's the mindset aspect, right? And so for me, a lot the kind of biggest tip I always give people is to kind of break it down into small steps and figure out and just focus on like the next tiny step, right? And not kind of worry about like the big goal that's a lot more daunting and scary. So like for example, there was once when I did this was like when I was 20. I was like, I want to do like a small concert for myself. Because like I used to like dabble in songwriting a bit. And it's like, I want to just, it's something I've always wanted to do. So we booked out and thinking of like, I want to put on a show for myself, really big, scary project, right?
Yeah.
So then we break it down into like, what's the first thing you need, right? Maybe like it's a location or maybe it's a song, right? And so you focus just on that, right? And if it's like, let's say you start with getting a location, right? You can break that down even smaller into what's the first step of finding a location is shortlisting 10 possible places to reach out to, right? And if you focus on that and your thought is just, I need to find 10 places to reach out to, instead of I need to like put together this show, and you just do it step by step that way, it gets a lot less scary and you get confidence as you go, right? Each step you take, you get more and more confidence. And like, the confidence comes through like small victories.
I love it. It's true. And I'm just thinking about it. Like, I've always wanted to put on a talk for podcasting in my area, and like it's always been such a huge daunting thing because like, oh my god, like I have all these things. And as you're talking about, like, no, you just need to pick a venue, and I'm like, shit. Yeah. Like, yes, I already have a venue. I know a venue that's going to say yes to me. Okay, that solves like 80% of the problem.
Yeah, and then once you reach out to them, once they say yes, right, that gives you even more drive to move forward with it.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of thinking about like 5 steps down the line, and then it gets much scarier.
Oh my God, this is awesome. Thank you very much for that tip, because it already solved a problem for me. So I know it's going to solve something for my audience. What's next? Like, what is a goal that you have?
I have a list of like 40 like live projects that I want to do. Ranges from like one day I want to write a book to, I want to open a restaurant in the next like 5 to 10 years. At the
what
moment,
would your restaurant be on?
My restaurant, I like the fine dining kind of stuff. So my background was the creative fine dining, like 7, 12 course tasting menus kind of places. So I did a pop-up in Singapore earlier this year, actually. And if I open the restaurant, it will be built around that concept, actually. So I did a pop-up where the idea was to encourage people to have like deeper conversations over the meal, right? Coming from a marketing perspective, you always ask like, what is a product for, right? The idea of like Apple isn't about computers, it's about creativity, etc. So for me, a meal is about, as much as the food is important, it's about bringing people together, right? And sharing memories with your loved ones. So what we did was each guest, you get a 12 personal values: love, happiness, peace, stability, etc. You choose 7 of the 12, and you get a 7-course meal based on what you chose. Wow. So if you and your partner have like 4 of the same and 3 different ones, you get 4 courses of the same dish, 3 courses of a different dish, and you encourage the conversation of like, why did you choose that? So yeah, that's kind of the big goal in the next 5-10 years, is I'd want to open a restaurant that's like built around that concept.
So you did a pop-up of this?
Yeah, I did like a weekend, like 2 or 3
was
dinner services.
I'm so interested in knowing what the feedback was from it.
The first day was a bit of a shit show. Yeah, it was very messy. But the second, third days, like the feedback was pretty good. Like people really enjoyed it. They were like, it's really, it's really unique. It's a different experience.
My God, just doing that around Valentine's Day, and like oh my God, it would sell out because it's such a unique thing. Because like first dates, it would be great for first dates.
Yeah, one of my friends actually brought a date to it, and I think they're still together now. That's like 4 months ago. So
yeah, no, because
it wasn't the worst date, I guess.
Yeah, but it allows you to have these like great conversations. Like, what are your values when it comes to love, or what is your values when it comes to certain things? When you look for, or like, what do you want to talk about in this meal? You can use your food to dictate the. Oh my God, the marketing for that restaurant is just over the top.
Yeah, so kind of like even in my work as a chef, right? Like everything ties in, right? Like the marketing background. I think if you pay attention enough, like no matter what paths you take, there are things you can always kind of tie in together. And Steve Jobs had a thing about, when you look back, the dots will always connect. Yeah, I think that's something I've slowly been noticing.
I love it. Derrick, I'm having a great time talking with you. I really want to try your restaurant when it does, so I'm going to definitely keep you in my Rolodex. I want to ask you Spark, which is the Spark the Conversation by Seek Discomfort. Everybody in the realm who listens to my show knows how much I love Spark. Here it is. Have you ever felt like you could never truly repay someone for something they did for? Please explain.
It's a good question. it's not really a specific like thing per se. I think for me it's more just like people and like the relationships. They're like, some of my closest friends who've kind of, always been there and such, right? There's that of like, I don't think I can ever like, you know, repay like that friendship and all. Like people who stuck by me and all that. But I don't think there's a specific like one specific thing in itself that, yeah.
Okay, I love it. Derrick, we're coming close to the end. I'm going to jump off the screen here. I'm going to let you have the last little bit. Please tell my audience where they can find you, how they can support you, and the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, so you can find me at derrickkwa.com. I have a kind of free PDF download on like 5 steps to overcoming your fears, to like doing what you love. So a lot of what we're talking about of taking those small steps and such. And I also still do like freelance marketing work. So if anyone has like, paid ad stuff or like content marketing or really any digital side that you need help with, you can feel free to drop me an email. All my contact details is on my website at derrickkwa.com.
Awesome. Derrick, I want to thank you very much for sharing your unique journey into freelancing and how it's given you the opportunity to be partying in the Bahamas with some very professional poker players. To my audience, make sure you check out the links down below if you want to get that free PDF so that you can take those steps to start having a freedom that you're looking for or living the life like Derrick does. It seems like I'm going to download that because that's a life I want. But as always, the links are in the show notes down below. I thank you so much for listening, Derrick. Again, thank you for being on the show and sharing your story. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. That was great.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, you know what to do. Always invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.